Welcome to Uncensored Conservatism. This is episode number 308, and continuing with my top 20 in the American Hall of Shame. At number 10 is Jefferson Davis, President of the Confederacy. Before becoming President of the ill-fated Confederacy, he was a senator from Mississippi, and he actually spoke a rather poignant speech on the Senate floor against secession. But once Mississippi seceded, he felt his loyalties were to his state. Now, he could be viewed as a racist by today's standards, certainly since he had several slaves himself, and he did not think very highly of blacks. But the bottom line is, he really wasn't a good leader. He was thin-skinned and could not take criticism. He showed favoritism in his appointment of military leaders, especially Lucius Northrop, and he articulated no clear strategy for winning the war and likened himself more as a military hero because he served in the Mexican War. And although eventually captured and imprisoned for 2 years, he never was tried for treason. Anyway, at number 9 is George W. Bush. Why? Okay, first of all, let's just get something out of the way. 9/11 was not his fault, despite what some on the left proclaimed, but it did transform him and his administration. Yes, the collapse of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan was a success and sent Osama bin Laden on the run. The aftermath, not so much a success. Now, Bush ran against the notion of nation building and exporting democracy, as Bill Clinton attempted in Haiti. But here was Bush now doing the same thing in Afghanistan, and then again in Iraq. And yes, Saddam Hussein was a bad man, but he did not have nuclear weapons, as the Bush administration swore. May have had weapons of mass destruction, like chemical and biological stuff, but he didn't have nuclear weapons. Domestically, his policies ushered in the surveillance state with the Patriot Act, although well-meaning. Look at what these laws have ushered in. And he listened way too much to the war hawks in foreign policy, and way too much to the, oh, they're my principles crowd domestically when it came to immigration and government spending. Anyway, at number 8 is she who will not just go the fuck away, Hillary Clinton. As First Lady, she was an absolute bitch and was behind the attacks on women who were coming out of the woodwork about her husband's sexual proclivities. And speaking of which, I should have put Bill Clinton on my heroes list for sleeping with this woman in the first place. She was a do-nothing senator who was just using the job to run for president. I don't think she really accomplished anything except getting names on some post offices in New York. Anyway, she lost to the guy on the left. But it wasn't because people hated her. No, it was because the Russians stole the election from her. And she still believes that to this day, despite all of the evidence that no such thing happened. Her foreign policy as Secretary of State is disgusting, and problems in the world today, from the Middle East to Ukraine, can be traced to her tenure as Secretary of State. Hillary Clinton, she's just a despicable hag of a woman. And number 7 is Dick Cheney, a warmonger if there ever was one, and likely the one behind Bush's foreign policy. I mean, he even managed to shoot a friend in the face. And I think this is funny, because if you don't buy this magazine, Dick Cheney will shoot your face. While hunting one fine day. And the worst thing about Dick Cheney, he sired this woman, his daughter Liz. And number 6, John C. Calhoun. Ooh, he looks scary. Now, a word about him, because he was a fan of a dude named Timothy Dwight at Yale, who convinced him that New England could secede from the Union. And that's Mr. Dwight. This planted the idea of nullification in the head of Calhoun at an early age, and what is secession but the ultimate form of nullification? Anyway, that being said, he was an ardent supporter of slavery, believing it to be the right of states to determine whether it existed within their borders or not. So Calhoun, a very powerful senator, at the time, laid the groundwork for the eventual Civil War that cost over 600,000 American lives. He deserves to be on the list, but I must add another word here because it's easy for us to sit here in 2025 and decry slavery in the 19th century, but it was an accepted fact of life. Just as today, there's accepted facts of life. You can't say certain words on the internet. I don't include Calhoun here because he was an ardent supporter of slavery. I put him here because so many others adopted his view and carried it into a bloody civil war. Okay, at number 5, and no one's going to disagree with this one, Jim Jones. This is a man who formed his own church, closest to, but not really, a Pentecostal one, and turned it into a cult of eventual death. Over 900 people died at Jonestown, his alleged utopia in Guyana, after ingesting cyanide at his urging. To make matters worse, the guy was a socialist, or communist, in every sense of the word. And his dalliance with communism did not start in Jonestown. The People's Temple in the San Francisco area, and as proof, Jim Jones was a member of the Communist Party since the 1950s, and many of his adherents referred to themselves as Che, Lenin, or Stalin. So thankfully, this scumbag took his own life in that jungle utopia hellhole he established in Guyana. Next, at number 4, Lyndon Johnson. Yes. He signed major civil rights legislation into law in the 1960s, even though he frequently referred to black people as, pardon me, niggers. He got the job because someone killed his predecessor, but what lands him here is his war on poverty. Take the New Deal, stir in some steroids, and you get your war on poverty. And the irony is that this war did not result in victory, because there's still poverty. And just think what came out of this. Medicare and Medicaid, the associated taxes, bureaucracy, waste, fraud, and abuse. The food stamp program, and the Elementary and Secondary Education Act that forced the federal government into K-12 education. He greatly expanded American involvement in Vietnam, and then, because he sucked as a leader, ran for the hills in 1968 and refused to run again for another term. So Lyndon Johnson is no hero. But next up, neither is Nathan Bedford Forrest at number 3. A lot of people don't know about this guy, but he was a Confederate general during the Civil War. Before that, he was a successful and well-known slave trader in the Mississippi Valley. But as a Confederate general, he's best known for the Fort Pillow massacre, where Confederate troops shot surrendering Union soldiers. There are also reports of hacking to death by sabers, crucifixion in one case, and setting fire to a barracks with wounded Union soldiers in it. So what did he do after the Civil War? Of course, joined the Ku Klux Klan in 1866 and then become their first Grand Wizard the following year. Now, yes, he only held the title for like 2 years and he quit the Klan, but not because of some moral epiphany. Instead, he decried their lack of discipline and strategy. I guess they didn't murder, lynch, and intimidate blacks in the South efficiently enough to his liking. He was a despicable man, and at number 2 is a despicable woman. Margaret Sanger, the founder of the largest abortion mill in America, Planned Parenthood. It started as the Birth Control League and fought against laws which banned the sale of contraceptives. Okay, whatever, all good. But it belied an ugly side, eugenics. This is a woman who called for the sterilization of, quote, morons, mental defectives, and epileptics. As a result, over 70,000 people were sterilized in the country. She wanted to segregate the impoverished, prostitutes, paupers, drug addicts, and the unemployed on concentration work farms, where they could leave only if they agreed to be sterilized. By her own admission, this would affect 15 to 20 million Americans. But her most cherished project was the Negro Project, which targeted primarily black communities for birth control, and wrote to Clarence Gamble, then head of the Urban League, in an effort to get black churches to get on board. She said, quote, We don't want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. Is there any wonder that her progeny, Planned Parenthood clinics, target the black community? She was a disgusting human being, and she should have been an abortion herself. And finally, at number 1, Woodrow Wilson. He was above all else a racist. He fired many black government workers, and those that remained were segregated while at work. His endorsement of the movie Birth of a Nation glorified the Ku Klux Klan and actually led to a resurgence of the group under Wilson. The Sedition Act of 1918 criminalized criticism of the government and landed Eugene Debs in jail on a 10-year sentence for opposing the draft. If any publication opposed America's entry into World War I, they lost their mailing privileges courtesy of the post office. In other words, he weaponized the frickin' post office. Anti-German propaganda fueled discrimination against anyone with a German-sounding last name like Berger. The German language was banned in many states, and one German was actually lynched in Illinois in 1918. And they talk about political rhetoric leading to violence today. Wilson set it into motion. In fact, Wilson sounds eerily familiar to the Democrats of today with their violent rhetoric and then blaming the violence on other people. And while he was an advocate of post-war Europe and self-determination, that wasn't the case with his actions in Haiti or the Dominican Republic. He was the president that greatly expanded the bureaucratic administrative state, concentrating power in the executive branch, and he gave us the Federal Reserve and the federal income tax. He kept us out of World War I, until we entered the war in Europe under spurious circumstances. Nope. Woodrow Wilson is the worst because he is the prototypical Democrat, a hypocritical lover of power and big government, and a sneering elitist know-it-all. And that's it for today. Have a great day and a more pleasant tomorrow.